Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to Off the Res podcast. I am your host, future Dr. Greg, and today we are talking about the Peoria Constitution, committee rules, roles, and obligations, and who is the Peoria Council, anyways. So, if you guys weren't aware, it looks like there was a special general council meeting held today at 10:30 at Buffalo Run Casino, and this is in regards to a grievance committee findings. From my understanding, just being a participant via Zoom, I did not go and attend in person. So being a Zoom attendant, I was not able to vote or to be a part of the discussion. However, I did take copious notes and I wanted to share what I heard and what my experience was with you guys today, and maybe make some recommendations and go through some of the Constitution to help us engage in our civil obligations as Peoria citizens. So again, today's special general council meeting was in reference to a grievance packet. From my understanding, there was numerous grievances put together by a group of Peoria citizens. I think there was over 30 of them that signed on to this packet of grievances. And it sounded like today was in reference to grievance number 6. So I'm not sure how many there were. One of the things about participating via Zoom is we were not able to see the slides. So I'm not sure what the grievance said, and I'm not sure what exactly the findings that were said. However, the grievance committee did present that they did find in grievance number 6 that there was a violation of an employee's Indian civil rights. Now, once they found that violation, what happens is that we have a special general council meeting where people go in person. And for our tribe, you have to be in person to vote and discuss. So there was almost, I believe, 36 to 38 people that attended the meeting to participate. And it was after the grievance committee presented their findings, the vote did pass to accept the grievance committee's findings that there was a violation of an employee's federal civil rights, and it passed 24-11. Now, that's really important because it passed and we accepted the grievance committee's findings. The second part of this is, what are the obligations and roles of the Peoria Council, and who is the Peoria Council? Well, we are the tribal citizens. And so what the Constitution states in there, in the Constitution, and you can Google the Peoria Tribe Constitution so that you can get a copy of it. It's very short. It's only 19 pages. It comes in a PDF and you can read it. It's very easy to read. But what it says is Article 8 are the powers, and Section 1 is the Peoria Council. The Peoria Council shall be the supreme governing body of the tribe, not the business council, not the election council, not HR, but the Peoria Council should be the supreme governing body of the tribe. And we, as tribal citizens, are the Peoria Council. Now, I know a lot of us and the majority of us cannot make it up there, and we do not have access to absentee voting yet, which is a talk of being able to participate via Zoom. So for today's meeting, the Peoria Council was those 36 to 38 people, tribal citizens who showed up at the casino to participate in the meeting. Okay. So those people are the supreme governing body of the tribe, and that the Peoria Council shall exercise those powers delegated to it by this Constitution, including, but not limited to, and it lists a couple of items. However, those items don't pertain to today's meeting. But what I want to point out is that it was their obligation and their role to act on the grievance committee's findings, not just vote to accept them, but to actually act on them. So from my understanding of the grievance that was voted on, it did pertain to an HR incident. However, what the grievance committee found was that the business committee, which is run by Chief Dobbs and second chief, and you guys know the first council, second council, third council, treasurer, and secretary are all part of the business committee. So there was a lot of discussion about what should be done. And there were several motions made, and I want to go over those. So the first thing that was discussed was not only was the special general council meeting mail out done in accordance with the Constitution. However, unfortunately, on the back of it, the chief had reached out to attorneys. I guess it's called KTS, is the legal law firm out of Seattle, and had put on the back of the mail out her recommendation and that law firm's interpretation of the Constitution. And where that's problematic is that's why we have the grievance committee. The grievance committee was tasked with this. The grievance committee did the investigation. The grievance committee has the power to act and to investigate on the tribal membership's behalf. And I think that's where a lot of people were frustrated, is they felt that the chief had overstepped her bounds in adding this letter because it didn't allow for the grievance committee or anyone else to explain to membership what the grievance was about, what their beliefs were, and there was no discussion behind it. And they also felt that it really thwarted, empowering Peoria citizens to come and participate in this special council meeting because they felt like the chief was recommending that no action be taken, which is not her place. The job of the Peoria Council, which is all of us, is the tribal citizens, not the business committee and not the chief, but it was the Peoria Council and our citizens that were present today that were to discuss and make recommendations on what action should be taken. So that was very frustrating. People felt that not only had she shouldn't have been allowed to spend the tribal monies to enlist the legal counsel interpretation of the civil rights violation. And they didn't feel and spend tribal monies, spending it on attorney's fees, and then also spending money to include this in the mail out. So there was a lot of discussion about that. There was motion also recommended that first the chief make a public apology, which was overturned because they were saying there was a lot of different reasons given about another mail out, another costly mail out. Some discussion was taken in the Zoom chat about, why can't she just make the apology in the newsletter? But that was overturned, so she was not required to make a public apology. There was also a motion to remove the chief from office. The chief Dobbs actually spoke up at this point and said that she would not entertain a motion for her removal because it was unconstitutional. And um, and then there was another motion that was put forward about a 90-day suspension of the chief and about withholding business committee pay and the chief's pay for a certain amount of time for a recall to be done to remove her from office. That also did not pass amongst the tribal citizens who voted. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we need to be able to know what actions we can take. And right now, our Constitution, and it was pointed out in the meeting today, that our Constitution is very open. It's very open for interpretation. And it just says right now that the Peoria Council has the right to act upon the complaint. And the decision of the Peoria Council, and again, this is the tribal membership, Peoria Council equals tribal membership present at the council meeting, and that the decision is final. And so another motion was made to overturn the business committee's decision to reinstate the employee. And again, Chief Dobbs spoke up at this point and said that that goes beyond the scope of the Constitution and that it's unconstitutional for the Peoria Council or Peoria tribal members in attendance to make a motion on that because, again, she's interpreting the Constitution. And here's where I think it's getting convoluted is how can we hold a business council or our business council accountable if we don't know how we can take action? And right now it just says to act upon the complaint and that the decision of the Peoria Council is final. And so to have the chief be sending out her recommendations in the newsletter with the special general council meeting announcements, and then having her sit at the head of this meeting, which should have been presented by the business committee, or not the business, by the grievance committee, was very frustrating as a tribal citizen because she was also interpreting the Constitution. And I want to point out in the Constitution, under Section 3 of the Grievance Committee, they should have the responsibility to decide constitutional interpretation by a majority vote of at least 4 members that should arise under any provision of this Constitution. And I think we need to think about that. If we have a business committee that takes action that the grievance committee finds merit to, and the tribal citizens vote to accept the grievance committee's findings, what types of action can we take to hold the business committee accountable? And why are none of these things being talked about? And why are they saying, oh, that's unconstitutional? Oh, you can't do that. Now, one of the other things I really want to highlight today, too, is the fact that the citizens that were there immediately jumped at the opportunity to remove Chief Dobbs as her role as chief, her, again, asserting that it was unconstitutional. However, that can still take place. That could take place outside of this meeting. And I think that's kind of where that part of it came from. But unfortunately, I do want to highlight also that if that does take place, according to our Constitution, that if you look it up under Section 2 of a recall, that if they do continue to go through with a recall in the next, several days, that once an individual, meaning in this case the chief, is subjected to recall proceedings, he or she shall not again be subject to such an action during the balance of his or her term. So it's kind of like one or done. And is this what you guys want to use as a way to remove her from office at this time? And I'm not sure, a lot of people expressed concerns in the meeting about the punishment fitting the crime. So the grievance committee found that the business committee had violated an employee's Indian civil rights. The Peoria Council or tribal citizens in attendance voted to accept the grievance council's findings, a vote of 24 in favor to 11 not in favor. However, what action was to be taken to hold those business committee members accountable was not resolved. And unfortunately, the meeting today was adjourned without any resolution of any action. So as we stand today, no action was voted on to hold the business committee accountable or passed. There was a couple of motions presented, however, they did not pass the removal of the chief and the suspension of the chief and the financial fines of payment withholding. So, it was very educational. I hope you guys were able to go and listen. I think there were some really good points made too about, that the HR matter was not what was in question here. And I think that's what I really want to highlight today. Today, was about exercising your right as a tribal citizen to participate in our governance structure, to be a participating in the discussion, participate in the vote. So for all of the majority of us who aren't able to drive up there for special general council meetings, being able to at least zoom in was a great benefit. I think I learned a lot. I was very frustrated, I'm sure as many of you were, that, we don't know what happens in these closed door meetings, these executive council sessions during business committee, which we're not to be privy to. However, I think that what I really want to emphasize is if you want to be heard and you want to participate in the vote, then you have to be present at this time until we get absentee voting in place via Zoom, or actually it's via Teams, which for me is a terrible platform. Um, but until we do that, we need to be aware that it's left up to the people who attend. And for those of you who attend, you have to be able to come up with some sort of action. You have to know our Constitution. Those times when the chief was just stating, why can't we overturn a business committee decision? As the governing body and final decision makers of the tribe, we are the final decision makers. The Peoria Council, aka the Peoria tribal citizens in attendance that are of voting age, our decisions are final. And I just really want to highlight, I think it's a very dangerous game when you've got anyone, let alone a chief for that matter, making recommendations in direct conflict with our Constitution, and also interpreting our Constitution on her own when that's not in our Constitution that she has that power to do that. That is the grievance committee's responsibility under Section 3. So just things to be aware of that, we need to be aware of our Constitution. We need to be aware of our voting rights and participation rights as citizens. There was a lot of discussion too about having a third party arbitrator come and discuss this and listen to what the business committee had to say, listen to what the grievance committee had to say. And that wasn't seconded either. But you guys, I want you to be aware you are that third party neutral governance arbitration committee. That is what the Peoria Council is, the tribal Peoria tribal citizens, members. We are the Peoria Council when it's referenced that in the Constitution. And it is our right and responsibility as that neutral third party governance to hold our leadership and our committees accountable. And I think that that does need to be looked at. So I appreciate any comments or questions that you might have. I think that, this obviously there was no action that was voted on. So I'm not sure if there was no action and everybody just took the chief's recommendation that she included, in the letter. But I think that it's a very sad day when people can be found um, to have violated somebody's rights, and then there's no way to hold them accountable. And the respect for the Peoria Council is not and was not held up today. There were several options that were made and motions that were made, and um, it'll be interesting to see where this goes from here. So I appreciate any questions or comments that you might have for me. You can also like and share this video or this podcast. I would appreciate it. And hopefully we can get some more participation in the next meeting. It'd be awesome. Have a great day.